So, welcome everyone. I am Carrie Howell. I am the CEO for American Migraine Foundation, and we are just so glad you're here tonight. And I know in this busy time of year, there's so much going on already. We were just talking beforehand. I can't believe that we're close to the end of the year, and I don't know where November went. So, I do want to have a couple of announcements tonight to share with you. If you're new to American Migraine Foundation, we want this to be a place for you to come and get resources that you need. We want you to know that the stuff we post, the stuff that's on our website, that's on social, on our e-blast, is all clinician verified. And that's what really makes us unique, is that we take that very serious. The output is, it's been read by someone on our editorial board and been approved. And that's something we spend a lot of time on to get that just right. So, but we want hot off the press to all the panelists here too, is we just opened today our American Migraine Foundation store. So if you don't get our e-news yet, you probably do now if you're signed up for the webinar. Please check that out. We will put that in the chat. Really and truly, things like that aren't huge money makers. More than anything, we want it to be a voice of advocacy and for you to be able to have something, whether it's at your desk and say, "Oh, I have migraine." If you're someone who wants others to know that and understand that about your own journey. But even bigger announcement tonight that you all are right off the press hearing about too, before we even share with the community, is we have been working on a depiction of what it could look like on a PET scan during a migraine attack. And so we actually, drum roll, Dr. Lay, I feel like you should do the drum roll. We are launching this, and see if you guys can see it from my backdrop. There you go. This is the lapel pin version of that, which is going to be sold through a company called NeuroBlooms, and we'll put in the chat the different links for that in our AMF store. One of the things is that we really wanted people to be able to say, "Hey, you can see this. I am visible. Migraine is visible." Dr. Lay, you want to add anything else about that before we jump into tonight's
Yeah,
topic?
it's been a project that's been a couple of years in the works, and migraine is invisible, as we say, but we know scientifically there are so many things going on in the brain, in many different parts of the brain, and we came together and created this concept to show migraine, to make migraine visible. So through a lapel pin, a lanyard pin, maybe on a water bottle or a mug or a t-shirt, it really opens the conversation. So we envision perhaps somebody's at work and they have a water bottle on their desk, or they're wearing a lanyard pin and somebody says, "Hey, what's that on your mug?" Then, well, that's a brain depiction during a migraine attack. And I live with migraine. So it may bring opportunities for conversation with family, friends. It will help us reduce stigma. It's not just a headache. There's something going on in the brain. So lots of opportunities for our community to talk about migraine.
Yeah, absolutely. So, thank you. We could go on about this because this is so exciting and something we've been talking about for a while. I'll show it to you again if it'll zoom in, and I'll put the link in the chat. But without further ado, I'll turn over to our moderator tonight, Dr. Claire Sando. She is our editorial board co-chair. And really just gives and gives of herself. And tonight is leading the charge on our discussion. So I'm going to drop off into the background, and Dr. Sando, take it away.
Thank you, Carrie, and good evening, everybody. It's lovely to have so many people here joining us. As Carrie mentioned, I'm co-chair of the AMF editorial board, and I'm a headache neurologist at the University of Toronto in Toronto, Canada. So it is actually a little more festive weather up here than maybe some parts of the US. Recently, we've had some snow already. And so our topic for tonight, we've called this Migraine and the Holidays, Connection, Not Perfection. And we have three fabulous panelists who I am really looking forward to chatting with. I'm just going to introduce each of them, and to let you know, we're going to try to keep 10 to 15 minutes at the end for questions. Please put your questions into the Q&A. We'll be monitoring the Q&A for questions, but we won't be monitoring the chat for those questions. So please send anything that you want us to discuss near the end into that Q&A section, and we'll do our best to answer as many things as we can. So our panelists for tonight. So first, Dr. Christine Lay. She's the current chair of the American Migraine Foundation and a headache neurologist and full professor at the University of Toronto, where I get to work with her. And we have Dr. Dawn Buse, PhD, who's a clinical professor of neurology at Albert Einstein College of Medicine. She's a member of the board of directors of the Headache Cooperative of the Pacific and a licensed psychologist. She's done really phenomenal work with people with migraine and other chronic painful conditions for decades, actually. She's been doing biofeedback, cognitive behavioral therapy, relaxation training, and research, as well as her work in patient advocacy. She's published more than 200 scientific articles, won numerous awards, and it's really a privilege for us to have her with us today. We also have Dr. Betsy Sang, who is a clinical psychologist and professor of clinical health psychology at Yeshiva University and neurology at Albert Einstein College of Medicine. And she's also done some really fabulous research trying to improve migraine management through harnessing behavior change, in particular, identifying mechanisms by which those treatments work, exploring psychosocial factors predicting outcomes, and describing some decision making. So it sounds like we have a lot of really good expertise here for our topic, and I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Maybe we'll just kick this off by saying, I think the holidays can be a mixed bag for some people. There's this idea of the beautiful, snowy picture postcard. Everyone is having a wonderful, cozy holiday, and yet I don't think that's how it feels for everyone, in particular, people living with migraine. There can be all these thoughts and ideas. What will happen? Who will I see? Who won't I see? Will I be able to manage all of the things that are expected around the holidays? So maybe we'll just start with a general, is it possible to find joy in this holiday season when you live with migraine?
I'll start off by saying I think absolutely, but it requires a lot more planning, thinking, strategizing than perhaps at a different time in your life when there isn't as much going on, because a lot of people are pulled in many directions by family, by friends, by coworkers. You must come to this event. You must come to this party. Let's go see this holiday movie. Let's bake cookies together. And so I think there is a great opportunity to find joy. It just requires a lot more thinking, I would say.
Yeah.
Also,
Go ahead.
I'm also struck by how migraine is a characteristic that not everyone in the population shares, right? And that can make you feel othered, and that othering is particularly isolating around holiday times too. So thinking through how you may be able to overcome that and affiliate with people in your life and let them in a little bit to what you may be going through in the moment, can help you feel more engaged and connected, and may find a little bit more space for joy in the holidays, even as you do all of the planning that is necessary to try to manage your migraine disease while also attending holidays with your family and friends.
Absolutely. Those are such good points. And holidays are notorious for being a time of disrupting schedules and our good intentions and our healthy habits. So you may have gotten into a good sleep routine, hydration, nutrition, exercise, or movement. And these are times when all of that can be turned upside down. And we know when you live with migraine that the nervous system does best with a steady, even, regular routine. And so that can be something which can be challenging. Not insurmountable, but definitely challenging.
And this is a really good sort of segue into something I was hoping we'd talk about, which is, I think, a hot topic for many people are migraine attack triggers. And there's this idea that the holiday may have some of those. What are some things that we should watch out for in the holidays in particular?
Well, anything leading to change to those kind of cardinal healthy habits that we just mentioned, and depending on what type of holiday, all of those healthy habits may be impacted. You may travel, you may cross time zones, you may fly in an airplane, change altitude, you may have stormy weather, you may change your eating hours or what you eat, or be exposed to things you don't normally eat or drink. There may be alcohol or caffeinated beverages or just a lack of hydration. So it is a time when any of those healthy habits that normally raise the threshold for an attack are kind of falling down a bit. And we want you to enjoy. And we don't expect you to stick to this very, very regimented, boring routine all times. But the more you can keep some of those healthy habits in, those are your protectors, which can help shore up the nervous system and make it less likely to have an attack or less likely to have intense pain severity, long duration symptomatology. So the more we can keep those habits, the better. And as we talk about holidays, there are so many holidays around the world, different countries, right? Like Dr. Sando, I mentioned 4th of July recently, and you mentioned Canada Day. And we both agreed that both of those involve hot dogs at some time. But different religious holidays may also have fasting. So whether someone is celebrating the month of Ramadan or the day of Yom Kippur or other days of fasting, fasting is known to be particularly challenging for many people with migraine. So I will pass it on to my colleagues.
One of the things that I want to make sure that we emphasize is that we don't think of um, triggers as something that we are necessarily to blame for. Our brain is interacting with its environment. And I like to think more about the threshold, like Dr. Buse just said. I'd like to elevate that again, that what we're really talking about are times when our threshold may be higher and times when our threshold may be lower for migraine attacks. Um, the holidays can be a time when we can be a little bit selfish. And for some people, being selfish means sleeping in and staying up late and drinking alcohol and then eating a bunch of chocolate. But for those of us in this room for whom those activities might lower our migraine threshold, for us being selfish might be saying, I'm sorry, Aunt Gertrude. I know that you don't want dinner to start until 8 p.m., but I have to eat at 6. So I am happy to try your turkey again at 8, but I will be having my main dinner at 6. Like really feeling like the reason why holidays are the way they are is so that we can enjoy ourselves and enjoy our relationships and enjoy our family. And we should feel confident to be a little selfish and to advocate for ourselves so that we can do the things that will make us feel good and that will make us feel healthy and happy and able to be there and enjoy the holiday.
Yeah, I think those are great points. And I often will talk to patients when they get the invitation. They have to think about, is this a must do or I should do? And you need to try to make that decision early enough so that you're not letting the host wonder and wait, are you coming, are you not coming? But let them know up front, yes, I can be there, but at this limited time. So should do and must do, you have to think about. And the other thing is, just as my colleagues were saying, if you're off to a party and there's going to be lots of food and things, don't go to the party hungry. Try to eat what you might think is your balanced meal. As Dr. Singh just said, I need to eat at 6. The party starts at 7. I'm going to have something to eat so that when I get to this party, I'm not, starving and picking and eating things that I don't know what's in them, or I know they might be potentially problematic for me. So arrive at the party fairly well nourished and fairly well hydrated so that you can focus a little bit more in on socializing, finding a quiet corner to talk to people rather than scrambling to keep yourself fed.
These are lovely points. And I just have maybe some follow-up thoughts and questions to a couple of those. So do you have any practical advice for how to creatively participate in gatherings when you may not be able to attend the full thing or the same type of event that everyone else is? Should it be virtual? Should you ask for quiet spaces? What would be good?
Those are great ideas. I like that Dr. Lay mentioned early communication. So mentioning it early on with whomever has invited you, family, friends. If they're close to you, they may already know that there are some accommodations which can be helpful to you. And we find that often people living with migraine will avoid events entirely for fear of not being able to make it at the last minute, having to leave early or come late, or for fear that their accommodations might be too much for other people. So I definitely encourage you to engage in the activities you want to, but to feel empowered that you have the right to write back or talk to the host, hostess, and say, I may need to leave early. I may need a quiet space. I may need to XYZ. And you have every right to clarify what it would take for you to be able to be there and enjoy the activity.
Yeah, the accommodations that they'll make for mothers with babies, they'll make for you. So, if you are close enough with the family hosting that if you had a baby and you needed to breastfeed and you would feel comfortable saying, Is there going to be a quiet place that I can go to do this? That's the same kind of situation, you know? I have migraine disease and I might need a quiet place to step out. Is that, feasible or not? And that can help you make decisions about whether or not something is or isn't feasible. I work in New York City. That's not feasible in a lot of spaces here. But by having that communication, that can help you make your decisions, and it can also help your hosts understand where you're coming from. I also think that there are some things that we do because we've always done them one way. And one of the things that I have always found is true about migraine disease is that oftentimes the accommodation for people with migraine disease is welcomed by all people. That migraine often makes us more aware of and potentially sensitive to things that kind of nobody likes. Nobody really wants to wait until 10 o'clock to eat dinner, so it may be that as you push and ask for things that may be helpful for you, that in fact they're helpful for everyone. It may be that it's actually very difficult for anyone to be able to make it to this place, but that a series of FaceTime calls is a way to keep up this tradition that is dying, right? There are lots of ways that you may actually have a little impetus because of your migraine disease to make changes that are actually good for everyone and good in everyone's best interest.
Yeah. And I think if you're invited somewhere like a potluck, I'm thinking about, and they say, oh, would you mind bringing 3 dozen cookies? Perhaps 2 different flavors would be great. I think you're well within your rights and self-care and self-support to say, I would love to come to the party. Would it be okay if I brought drinks? And just give them an alternative that's easier for you to manage. You can go to the store. You could buy it 6 weeks ahead of time if you want, and it's ready to go. It's in your house. You're not scrambling the night before trying to decorate a bunch of cookies. So I think, in addition to planning and speaking up for yourself, but also understanding that you can get to these events with a little bit of tweaking around different things. I've said to patients in the past, you can, within your rights, say to the host, I would love to come. Unfortunately, I have to leave around 8. I have another event. And that other event might be self-care at home on your couch, relaxing, doing your mindfulness or whatever. You're not lying. You're being very honest with the host and letting them know so that, come 8 o'clock when you make your quiet goodbye, or as our family says, the Irish goodbye, everybody's like, I don't know, did they leave? I think they're over there. I think they're in that part of the room. But when you leave that event, the host won't be insulted. They will understand, oh, that's right. Christine said she had to leave at 8. It's great she came for a little while.
Dr. Lay, I want to follow up on that. One of the things that I have often found the most helpful for people with migraine when they're considering traveling, so I know traveling won't be a part for everyone, but it will be for some of us, is maintaining as much control as possible. Staying in someone else's home can be fraught. And for many people with migraine, choosing to stay in a hotel or an Airbnb, it just reduces the amount of stress and concern and unpredictability. But for some people's families, that's a very hard pill to swallow. But you can always say, I have somewhere else to stay, but I'm so happy to be here, right? So I do think as you are planning your holiday season, recognizing that because migraine has this inherently unpredictable nature, that you don't just, want, but that you deserve to have more control over your schedule and your body during this time. And you don't have to give it up just because it's the holidays.
And you mentioned earlier, Dr. Sando, about virtual. So, attending a party virtually is difficult, but what if your friend says, I'd love to go and see this new movie, and you're thinking, oh, the lights, the movies, the noise, the popcorn with all the additives, if they're close enough friend, you could say, listen, that I have migraine, I'd love to do a movie with you. What's your favorite holiday movie? Oh, Home Alone. Great. Could we, sit on our couches in our prospective places, get the movie on Zoom or a Netflix party? I think I'll make my own, safe popcorn that isn't full of all kinds of bad stuff. And you can still be together and enjoy that movie together, but you've still maintained control over potential migraine triggers.
I love that.
They're all very practical tips that you're sharing. I like these a lot. What if, despite your absolutely best intentions and planning, the worst happens and you're actually not able to attend these events, how can you, as someone living with migraine, stay connected to family and friends when those things happen?
As I said earlier, I think early is key. So if you wake up at 10 o'clock in the morning and you know there's a 5 o'clock party and you know there is no way I'm getting to this party, you let the host know as soon as you can. And I think honesty is always the best way to go. Hopefully, this party you're attending, there are the individual knows that you live with migraine, and simply be very honest and say, I would love to have come. I was so excited about it. I was looking forward to seeing so and so and so and so and trying your punch that everyone talks about. But unfortunately, I've been struck with a migraine attack and I'm simply not going to be able to make it, and sorry to miss it.
One of the reasons why early is key, it's not just for your relationships, but it's also for you. One of the hardest things is to sit in indecision for a period of time. So the minute that you know that you want to change your course of action, be it attend the party you thought you might not be able to, or the alternatives, canceling the party that you had hoped to go to, I call it kind of setting both feet on the ground in your decision, then you're able to really no longer be flitting back and forth and having indecision around it, which can be distressing in its own right, in addition to having migraine symptoms. When you're trying to stay connected with people, we have a lot of, options, and there's all this technology now. I think that I would like to just acknowledge the inherent unfairness of migraine disease, that for people who do not have an unpredictable episodic neurologic disease that takes them out of social events, they can just coast without having to think through and plan their relationships and staying connected. It is not fair that those of us in this room need to do so much thinking about this. At the same time, migraine disease can feel like it takes control away from us. At the same time, this is an area where we actually have a lot of control. So, although the default for everybody else may be going to your family's holiday party, there are many other ways that you can stay connected, and you are in control of all of them. This is my personal example. I do not visit. I'm originally from Ohio. I live in Connecticut. I do not visit my family around Christmas. So I miss all of the big things. And so that is the default, and I don't get to do the default anymore. But what I do is a German tradition called Christmas tree visiting, where I bring cookies and I go to everybody's Christmas trees, and they give me coffee and I give them cookies, and they get to see my kids and comment on how much they've grown. And it can happen flexibly. It happens flexibly when people are available. So by creating that different tradition, it's allowed me to be much more flexible with my own health needs, my family's health needs, as well as our travel needs. That is one example of a way that you can retain control, even as this disease tries to take it away from us. Is it fair that we have to think more about this? No. But it is not an insurmountable challenge.
I love that, Dr. Saying. I want a Christmas tree visit with you. That sounds fun. Dr. Sando, one thing also is we're talking a lot about the hustle and bustle of holidays, of families who want to have you too much and parties who invite you. And I think this is also a time when we should think about people who might feel lonely or isolated for so many reasons, maybe due to bereavement, maybe divorce, maybe children are with the other spouse that day, maybe deployment in the military or immigration, so many reasons that whatever holiday or major event you celebrate, you might not have these social events and the people around. And then we're really talking about creating different kinds of meaning in these events for you. And then you really get to think about what would bring me some pleasure, some joy, some peace. What would that be? And that's really a whole different question, but I think it's really important to acknowledge that many of our listeners will all be in different places when whatever holiday is important to them comes around.
This is
Yeah, that's a
absolutely
great point.
true. Sorry, Dr. Lee.
I should say that's a great point. Absolutely.
We all agree with your great point. Yeah, and in those cases where the holidays are not what you wish or knew from the past, do you have any suggestions about finding meaning at those times?
That is really the personal choice then. What would be meaningful to someone in that moment? It can be anything that, should they have the time free, they can do um, at home on their own, creating new traditions. It's also an amazing time to help or volunteer for others that might create connections and really wonderful positive feelings that come back to you. Um, the opportunities are so wide. It's also just a perfect time if you're off of work or school or don't have other commitments to do a wonderful self-care activity. Make it a self day and do all of your favorite things. So it can be anything that calls to you, anything that feels right in your heart.
One of the things that you learn when you do a lot of values-based therapy with people, which is part of my practice, is that there's just absolutely no right way to be a human being and that there's no right set of values. One of the things that can be really clarifying is actually hearing values. So we have people rank how important all these values are to them. And um, I can't wait until the person hears something and they say, other people care about that? I don't care about that at all. And that can be so clarifying, just that there are real differences. And we've been talking a lot about family up until now, but family may not be it for you. For you, it may be the environment. And being able to contribute in some way to the world is a way that you make the holiday meaningful. For others, it may be learning, museums and culture. For some, it may be, health. Everybody has things to which they connect and they feel like when I do this, this is how I bring meaning to the world and this is how I make meaning of my life. So there's no wrong way to do that. There's no wrong set of values. And really, it's mostly about not letting others decide what your values are for you, but sitting down and doing a little bit of reflecting so that you can identify the ways in which the holidays can be more meaningful to you in your current place and with your current resources and health status.
There's a lot. There are all these movies that we see advertised in commercials and things that are portraying a specific way of being. Do you have any specific suggestions around not comparing yourself to those things and helping identify those things that are truly what you want?
Yeah. Social media is a trap. I think we all know that. But the kind of constant social comparisons can be a trap. On the other hand, social media is also, this real gift because you can find other people who share your values and you can see the ways in which they are making meaning in those kinds of places. So I think that that's probably my biggest, recommendation is when you've self-reflected and kind of thought through, like, this is more what I'd like it to look like, seeking out communities like this one for those for whom managing their migraine disease is an important part and it's an important value. And health and self-care are important values for the people in this group. And this is a lovely community to be able to share values and to see how people are managing that during this time.
Yeah,
And
there's
that's
perfect
go
answer,
ahead,
right?
Dr. Lee. Okay. And for those of us who are here and are part of this community, I guess maybe we have some people who might share those ideas and these struggles. How can we help people who are not part of the migraine community understand some of the challenges that people with migraine live with around the holiday, especially in these social situations? How would you communicate this to your friends, coworkers?
Well, I recently participated in a wonderful project that Miles from Migraine put together where they followed people who came to one of their education days They had talked about self-advocacy, and Dr. Anastasia Hutchins followed 15 of these people who came and learned about self-advocacy for the next 3 months to see how did it go in real life. And what we learned was that when people took it upon their shoulders that they had to educate everyone in the world what migraine disease is, they had to tell their employers, their family, everyone else around them. It was overwhelming and it felt like too big of a task. When people very much focused on what was their personal need, what was their personal experience, and what personal accommodation, support, or ask they needed in that situation, they felt much more empowered and it went better. So when it comes to advocating for yourself, think about what you really want and need, bring it down to, one or two asks and stick to that. You don't have to apologize for it. You don't need to explain the whole world of migraine. You just need to say, I would like to ask for help in this way, whatever that may be. Fragrance free in the workplace, like Betsy said, eating your dinner when you're hungry, not when the host is offering it. Whatever it is, keep it to something manageable, something personal to you. And then go into it knowing this is absolutely your right as a member of the human race to ask for what your needs are. You experience a neurologic disease that you didn't ask for. These attacks come out of the blue. You are doing the best you can to cope with it. You have every right to these accommodations. So just go in feeling confident that you have the right to ask this and don't feel like you have to take on more of the burden. That's what AMF is here for. That's what we're all here for. We'll fight that fight with you, but just keep it focused on your need.
Yeah, you do not need to be the migraine advocate that convinces the world that migraine is real this holiday season. That does not need to be your role. If that role makes you excited, God bless you, but that doesn't have to be, you are not letting anyone down by that not being something that gets you excited. And the way that I often ask myself two questions, which is, what is it that I actually need? Because migraine disease is the cause, but that's not what I need. What is it that I actually need? And when I ask for my 6 o'clock dinner, do I need to tell anybody or should I just eat it? And then kind of pick and say, oh, I had something earlier. The knowledge can be on a need to know basis, and it is nobody else's, prerogative to know your health information. It's just not. The other thing that I will have people that I work with ask themselves when they are gearing up for a larger advocacy conversation like those that Dr. Buse was talking about, or planning to explain themselves kind of over and over again to people, is that I'll say, how would you talk about this and would you worry about talking about this way if what we were talking about was epilepsy? Or what we were talking about was asthma. Choose your episodic chronic condition that is not migraine. Migraine disease, sometimes we feel like we need to clarify because there's stigma that it's not important, it's not real. And so we feel the need to defend it and by extension ourselves, right? If you wouldn't feel the need to explain or clarify if you were talking about seizures, then maybe you don't need to feel the need to explain or clarify. You were talking about migraine disease. By not, overly explaining or trying to educate the world on what migraine disease is, you may actually be doing just as good of advocacy work by saying, this is a serious thing and I deal with it. This is just as though it's an everyday kind of thing to say or thing to talk about. That is sometimes a thought exercise that helps people get over that hump and figure out how they're going to bring up any conversations that they do feel like they do need to address directly.
I think those are great points. And there may be some people who, want to talk about it, but don't know how. And that's maybe where, the pin that Carrie showed earlier will create it, because it's just an object sitting on your desk. And if somebody's interested there can ask. And I often encourage patients in their work environment, if they can find one person that they're willing to talk to a little bit about that, that person becomes their advocate at work, the same as a sibling or a spouse or partner. When you go to the party, they're looking out for you. They're aware of what your needs might be. They might notice that, oh my gosh, Christine's in the middle of like 10 people surrounding her and they're talking loudly. Then the advocate, your friend at work may just pop up, hey, Christine, come on over. I want to introduce you to somebody else. And they can pull you out of that chaotic, loud environment. So if you can find a way to get, one person that you feel is on your side, it calms the anxiety. And as I think, as the panelist said earlier, this indecisiveness, this anticipatory anxiety is often incredibly disabling. And it's so important to develop strategies to help manage that, but also to find a way to make that decision as early as you can so that some of that angst will dissipate.
That's why it's so lovely to have cross-disciplinary expertise in our panelists, the psychologist perspective and the headache neurologist perspective. I think it's so interesting to see the different ways in which we're able to help think around these things. And maybe we can shift gears and talk a little bit about if you have any specific advice about how to reduce stress or pace yourself through all of what can be a very long holiday season for some people.
Well, a great way to reduce stress is to adjust your expectations, because it very much is an experience when you are feeling overwhelmed and that you can't control or manage what is being asked of you. So if you think about kind of the numerator and the denominator there, we think about what's being asked of you in the numerator, the denominator is your expectations. Is this reasonable? Is this something you agree to? Is this something that, as Dr. Sang said, you should take on your shoulders? Or are these things you can kind of let go? It's really interesting to remember that in our research about stress as something that lowers that threshold, it was really changes in stress in both directions. So more stress for a prolonged period of time or reduction in stress. And that may be why some people experience migraine attacks perhaps on Saturday mornings or the beginning of the holiday, the beginning of the break, the beginning of their vacation. That can be surprising and really disappointing when the attack happens at that time. You've just made it after a busy season now to your holiday, to your vacation, to this relaxation time. So thinking about keeping a more low and even level of your experience of stress, the way you perceive things, is really important rather than it ramping up high and staying there and then kind of dropping quickly and you being at risk for an attack. So those kind of healthy lifestyle habits and moderating your stress level by checking in with your expectations as much as possible may be helpful.
I think one of the best ways to manage stress in any unusual situation like the holidays are is to have high confidence in exactly how you're going to manage your migraine at every step of the way. There should be no question or room for argument with yourself about when you're going to take which drug and when you're going to use which device and when you're going to go and when you're going to leave. Those decisions should be made before December 1st ever rolls around. Because if you feel highly confident in being able to manage migraine symptoms when they come, you will ironically have less anticipatory anxiety and stress about them, which makes them less likely to occur. That's one of the best things that we can do to manage stress with migraine disease, because I'm going to share with you guys like psychology's dirty little secret about this entire situation. So like right here, just with this little group, don't tell anybody. But stress is really hard to change because our lives are stressful. If you look at all the behavior change interventions that psychologists do for all the things, exercise, diet, sleep, stress is one of the hardest things to change because all it takes is moving house or the death of a parent or changing your job for stress to just ramp right back up again. It's our interaction with our environment. Does that mean that we should throw our relaxation skills out the windows? No, it probably means we should all be deep breathing more, right? But like stress is always going to be there and is always going to be something that we need to figure out how to manage. And starting a new stress management program on 11/18 is probably not going to lead to amazing stress management by 12/25, right? When we have situations like this, I think of two things. I think of medication, decision making, and confidence, and I think about sleep because sleep we actually have a lot more control over than we think. Waking up at the same time every day is something that we can absolutely do. So protecting our sleep, giving our brains that rest that they need to be able to be managed the next day. To me, that's kind of the core because sleep we can change. Cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, there are multiple online programs, there's multiple apps, they're 6 weeks long. And I find those skills revolutionary in my personal life. Many people that I've worked with, they find those to be the foundation that they can then move towards. So that's what I often focus on around the holidays.
I mean, those are great points. And I'm thinking, I look at, I tell patients the holidays are not the time to say, well, maybe, my medication number one might help. No, the holidays are the time to do exactly what your doctor recommended, the right medication for the right attack. And I even recommend extending that planning to, if you don't have a pill container, get one, keep it in your bag. Know what you're wearing to the party. Don't stress yourself out the night before or the afternoon of going, oh my gosh, what am I going to wear? And you've got, 15 outfits on the bed. Know how you're getting to and from the party. This might be the time when you don't want to rely on the carpool and go with everyone else who's picking up people. Say, you know what, I'll Uber. I'll see you there, or I'll drive myself. So the planning goes even beyond the medication planning, but the planning for the events. And as I say, schedule in a self-care afternoon. Oh, do you want to go shopping? No, you know what? I've got something else going on that afternoon. Again, as I said earlier, that something else is my self-care. And that's the time that I'm going to relax or do my meditation or go for a nature walk, whatever it is. There's no guilt in looking after yourself.
I'm glad you mentioned this word guilt because I think that's often a thing that people are feeling some guilt or shame around whether they're taking time for themselves or whether they're able to participate. Maybe especially for our psychology colleagues, how do you handle those guilt or disappointment, shame feelings as they arise here?
Absolutely. Those are such common feelings. They're very much part of the stigma that people may feel about living with migraine. And they are just part of the human experience. When we're with our family, a lot of times those earlier life dynamics come back, and our family can know on accident how to press those buttons, which may bring up some of those emotions. But as Betsy talked about, feeling like you're in control and feeling confident, feeling very confident that whatever is right for you is okay, that you are the expert on your own self, the expert on your own body, and you know what's best for your body, and confidently sticking to that and letting go of trying to please others, trying to make others happy at your expense.
So the guilt cognition is should. If you hear yourself saying should, I should make it to this party, I should get up, I should eat healthier. Shoulds are kind of the key for guilt. There is a phrase we say, stop shoulding on yourself. So if you notice shoulds, say, oh, no, no, no. The reframe for a should is to ask yourself, what do I want in the moment? I should eat healthier. I want to feel good in my body. So I want to eat the food that will help me feel good in my body. I should get out of bed. I want to have fewer migraine attacks. And if I get out of bed at the same time every day, that's part of my plan. So this is what I'm going to do. I should go to this party. What is it that you want? Do you want to go to the party? If you want to go to the party, is that feasible? Well, I want to go to the party, but I'm having migraine attack. All right. By saying want instead of should, it can help clarify and put back into focus what you do have control over and what you do not have control over. Guilt is inherently us thinking that we have control over the universe, when in fact, we are participants in this great, phenomenon, and that we have control over is narrow. And converting shoulds to wants is a classic, hint that you can use to try to help clarify and put into focus what it is you actually want and what it is you have control over in any given moment.
And what you choose. I think it's okay to say, I can go to this party, but I choose not to.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the want analogy and the stop shitting on yourself. That's a good one. Yeah.
That was from the VA.
It is a terrible word, though. I mean, it's just an awful word, as I said earlier. That I definitely need to attend. I should attend. Those should attends. They got to get dropped, or you've got to change them into a I will or I won't, because the should is torture. Yeah.
These are all really great points, and somehow we've already come to the end of our discussion portion. I'm not sure how that happened. It felt rather quick to me. And we have a number of really good questions coming in. Please keep submitting your questions in the Q&A. We'll do our best to get to as many of these as we can. Maybe I'll just answer the first one. Are we going to tape this to watch at a later date? So yes, this is being recorded and will be available on our website and our YouTube channel as well at a later date. There is a question: for people who have known food triggers, what are your recommendations on communicating that, especially for holiday family meals?
Well, as both Dr. Lay and Dr. Sang had talked about, early communication, conversation, letting people know what you can and can't eat is a good thing to do. But also, people will plan to serve what they want to serve. People, in fact, get very emotionally attached to their holiday menus. So you should also feel comfortable to bring something that you can eat, that you know works for you, is safe for you, and just let your host know in advance that either you'll be eating in advance or bringing something in advance of what you can eat. And again, that is nothing you should have to feel guilty about at all. That is just taking care of your body.
Yeah. I control what I eat. And if what I want to eat and what I want to put into my body is what the host is serving, that's great. But I think that you may be surprised at how often I am eating before I go over to someone's home. I'm somebody for whom there's a lot going on there, and I can't eat a whole lot. And so, I think that this idea of eating before not being hungry, potentially bringing your own is great. And there are some people who I'm extremely comfortable with, who I'll feel comfortable telling them my myriad concerns. But I don't feel like disclosing, frankly, to most people in my orbit. And so I choose to take responsibility for myself and to eat beforehand.
I think it's like if you were a vegetarian and you went to somebody's home and you would eat what you can. And I do believe in this, eating beforehand so that you're nourished enough that you won't trigger an attack because you're really hungry. The same goes for drinks. There's so many lovely mocktails out there now. People with migraine notoriously have trouble with alcohol. Maybe you offer to your host, I'd love to bring some nice glass bottled water and some sparkling water, and so that when you get to the party, the only options won't be something alcoholic or the non-alcoholic purple orange colored punch, which would be a problem, probably because of the food dye. So again, it goes back to planning and being confident enough, even if you don't have that confidence, as they say, fake it till you make it, to speak up and say, I would like, or I will, or I need. Because if you're invited to the party, most likely people want you there, and they're not going to care about whether you eat or don't eat or drink or don't drink. It's their presence, your presence, that they want.
I think this is nice also, the vegetarian analogy. Nobody would bat an eye if you said that you were vegetarian versus any of the other things that we're seeing from a migraine perspective. So that's a really good one to keep in mind. This is as valid as any other reason having the choices that you're making. There are a couple of questions around some specific points that people raised. So there's a question about any specific relaxation techniques or meditation techniques that would be suggested. Any thoughts there?
My recommendation for people with migraine is broad, and then I'll let Dawn get specific because this is really Dr. Buse's area. But we know that relaxation really works. Meditations can be helpful and can reduce, especially like how disabled we are, and it can improve our quality of life. They're good things to do. But at the very basic foundation, we do have some autonomic dysfunction going on in migraine. And so we do need some actual good old-fashioned deep breathing to go along with all of our meditation-y things. So I found that a lot of the apps nowadays are very mindfulness focused and often don't include a lot of deep breathing. One notable exception is Center, which is an app that has this really, really deep well of evidence-based relaxations, which is really, really lovely. And I'll let Dr. Buse talk about the research-oriented evidence-based relaxations too. But the way that you know that it's doing relaxation response training is if there's deep breathing. If they say, breathe however you want to. That's probably not something that's going to get the physiologic response that we want. My hint is that if you have something that you love, but it's not telling you to do deep breathing, just do deep breathing anyway. Then you can listen to your wonderful meditation that you love. But when they say breathe however you want, you say, I will choose to breathe deep, slow, and a little bit faster in and a little bit longer on the exhale. Just how I'll do it. Dr. Buse?
I'm just going to say perfect. Yes, I agree. I think whatever you feel attracted to, as Dr. Sang said, including that paced, healthy breathing, anything else that gets you there, which might be a guided visual imagery or a mindfulness exercise. It can also be prayer. It could be sitting in church. It could be listening to beautiful music. It can be taking a walk in nature, playing with your dog. There's so many things that can get you into a calm, focused, centered space where your mind is not hearing all of these stressful distractions and inner monologues. You just want to quiet down, center, focus. So whatever attracts you, plus add some of that nice paced breathing in through your nose, hold it out through your mouth for several minutes, and you'll feel your body just kind of relax.
And I think in those moments of feeling overwhelmed, particularly if you're anxious or worried about something, is to delegate responsibility. I know you've got family and friends or perhaps people attending the party, rather than taking responsibility for cleaning the entire house and making absolutely everything that they're going to eat when they come or drink when they come. Is, you can let people know ahead of time, hey, I'm hosting this year, but I'm making it a potluck this year. Please bring your favorite dessert. I'd like you to bring your favorite appetizer, and please bring a little card that tells the guests what's in your dish so that people know, oh, that looks like a vegetarian dish, but it's full of beef. So, you can engage people. And this is a time of year, I think, when people want to show their favorite dish. They want to bring their world famous pie. They want to bring their whatever. So you're not really bothering people or upsetting people by asking for support and delegating some of those responsibilities.
I love that, Dr. Lay. In fact, people want to help all the time. In fact, we just did a podcast recently on how to manage annoying offers and annoying advice. People want to help. If you allow them to help, you are giving them a gift of doing something that feels like they're participating, they're being helpful. So it's a great time to accept the offers of help.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Maybe just time for a couple more questions here. Do you have any specific resources to suggest for cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia?
Yep, there's 2 evidence-based apps. One is called Shut Eye. The other is called Stellar Sleep. It used to be Sleepio. Both of them were developed at some of our nation's greatest institutions by people who are wonderful and very much know what they're doing. You don't need an app. You can absolutely buy one of the books. There are several CBT for Insomnia handbooks that are available on Amazon. My favorite one is an oldie but goodie called No More Sleepless Nights, but there are more updated ones which are really lovely. No More Sleepless Nights is best if you have kind of specific problems. I'm a shift worker. I've got this problem. I've got that problem. There are two things that have to happen in cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. One is that your bed has to become paired with sleep, and the second is they have to spend less time in bed. It's called sleep restriction. So any program that includes those two components is CBT for insomnia, and any program that just tells you, sleep in a cool, dark place, that's not CBT for insomnia. That's how you know.
Maybe just one more question. How do you set boundaries around how much time you'll spend at events without worrying other people?
I think one of the things I said earlier is to let the host know ahead of time. Thank you so much. I'd love to be there. Unfortunately, I have to leave at 8. I have another event I have to get to. So it alleviates your guilt and your burden of, oh, how do I tell them? What are people going to feel badly if I leave or if I come late? Maybe your migraine care is you always have an afternoon nap, although I don't think napping is good for migraine, but maybe it is. And so you're going to get to the party late. I think letting people know well ahead of time what your intentions are just alleviates your stress and it alleviates the discomfort the host might be or feeling if you leave early and you never told them that you're leaving early, or they're wondering where you are because the party's been going on for an hour and you haven't shown yet. So I think letting people know is the best way.
Maybe just to close, I'm going to ask each of you for your takeaway thoughts on tonight's topic. We've obviously had a broad-ranging discussion. Dr. Lay, any specific takeaways about migraine in the holidays?
I think it's a wonderful time to connect with family and friends, and there's so much joy to be experienced, and people living with migraine can experience that joy, perhaps not in the same way, perhaps not, in the same number of events, but if you sort of take charge, take control, and value yourself and plan for what works best for you, then you will enjoy the holidays and people will enjoy your company.
That's lovely. I like this reciprocal thing that a couple of you have highlighted as well, the bringing joy and other people receiving joy from being able to be around and support you. Dr. Singh, any takeaway thoughts from you?
At the end of the day, you are the only one who matters. When you can only control yourself, and you need to make sure that you are really optimizing this holiday season for you. So although it may feel like this needs to be for the kids, this needs to be for my partner, this needs to be for my aging parents, remember that at first it needs to be for you. We have to put on our own oxygen mask first.
That's short and succinct. That's a concept I think people understand. Dr. Buse, you get the last word here. Any thoughts from you?
Absolutely. I would encourage everyone to be as kind and gentle to yourself as you would be to someone else with a chronic disease, and to find whatever it is that would bring you some enjoyment, some relaxation, some positive sense of self-worth and self-efficacy, whatever it is that you would like to do during your holiday time, and to have the gift of doing that without guilt. So that's what I would be my holiday wish for everyone.
That's a lovely wish. The self-compassion, values-based way of looking at the holidays when living with migraine. So thank you all so much for all of your insights tonight. Thank you to everybody who joined us and for all your questions. Like we said, this recording will be available online, and there are a lot of great resources at the American Migraine Foundation website, which delve deeper into many of the topics that we touched on tonight. So please do visit our website and stay tuned for future webinars. Thank you so much, and happy holidays to everyone.
Thanks, everyone.